Hey everyone, let's wrap up August. I noticed that I failed at making videos again. Apart from my letter to the months, I only uploaded 2 book reviews, which is good, but I would like to make more videos. Maybe next month. However, I read quite a lot of books, so let's get right into it. And let's start with the 2 books I also reviewed and which were the only books I read in physical form. The first one of which being Reproduction. I go into more detail in the video review, but I really enjoyed the writing. I liked how the narrative style kept changing, the perspective kept changing, how it plays with different styles of narration and different pace. Throughout the novel, the pace changes. Sometimes it's rather slow and sometimes you just flip the pages. The story itself didn't captivate me as much. It's basically the story of a young Black woman and a little bit older German man who get to know each other, have an affair and have a child. Reproduction, that's what it's called. And how this affects their life, and then we see how they met, we see them years later and events going on. There are also other people involved that we meet and that are part of this, let's call it patchwork family. And I kind of think in any other way, this story would have been rather boring. I noticed that all the male characters felt like they were stuck. They didn't evolve, they didn't change, whereas the female characters, they started off very naive and really experienced abuse in different ways, but they grew up and learned from that and they evolved. And I found that very interesting, how to see the difference and how to compare that. But yeah, it was an experience. I enjoyed it. And like I said, more in the video review. The other physical book I read and reviewed was Carpe Jugulum. This is the 23rd novel in the Discworld series and the 6th in the Witches. This is not a good place to start because you need too much prior knowledge to understand all the things that are going on. But this is a wonderful, fun story, I thought, introducing vampires and the area of Uberwald and new ideas to the world and different characters, also giving us more chance of learning more and looking deeper into Granny Weatherwax's character. Loved it. Let's move on to the ebooks. I've read How Long Till Black Future Month for a few months now. It's a short story collection by N.K. Jemisin, and I basically got it because I wanted to give her writing another try. I read the 5th season and I really didn't like it. I didn't understand why everybody loved it so much. I thought it was pretty predictable in some ways and boring in others. So most of it I couldn't connect to the characters in the novel. That's why I thought, because everybody loves her writing and talks so positively about her, that I thought maybe this short story collection will give me a broader range of what she can do and, yeah, her talents. And it didn't really work. While I must say that she has some very interesting ideas for some stories, some are meh. It's always like that with short stories. Some are good, some are bad, some you don't really connect to. I liked a lot of the ideas that she had, but I can't warm up to her writing and how she presents her characters, how she creates the stories. Something in that doesn't work for me. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it doesn't work for me. And I'm glad I read the collection. I can recommend it if you like her writing and if you're interested into her ideas and worlds that she creates. I can recommend the short story collection. If you don't like her writing, then you will not like it after this either. That's what I took away from that. Then I read The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water, and I have trouble remembering what that was about. I do remember the characters. I remember that there were bandits. I remember that there was a struggle and that they wanted to sell religious artifacts and that the religion was banned and destroyed by the ruling party. I'm not sure if the lack of memory is more connected to my dislike of the love to hate trope that they used in the book, because that took away my focus, or if it's connected to lacking world building, which I didn't feel when I was reading, but somehow it didn't leave a lasting impression. What I still remember is that although I really enjoyed the characters and the writing in this, I really don't like this type of love to hate trope where the female character is attaching herself to a group of people and basically being in the way and destroying and ruining a lot of things that they have planned. In the end, it all works out, of course, and she gets together with the love interest. But while it is happening, it always annoys me. I can't say more about the book. I'm sorry. I enjoyed the writing. I did like the world building while I was reading it, but somehow the story itself, I cannot summarize. Another ebook I read was the Nakano Thrift Shop, and I enjoyed this a lot. I really enjoyed the writing. I read Strange Weather in Tokyo before by the same author, and I loved how she portrayed characters. The characters that we follow are working in a thrift shop together, and they have different relations among each other, and we see them working, we see them interacting with each other, also see events happening around the store and what people sell and buy. And I love that. I also love the relationship that is quietly going on in the background between two of the characters and how it is awkward. I like the awkward characters here, how they really are not very well adept at relationships, at interacting with people, and how that all plays out. Can highly recommend it. The last book I read was The Buddha in the Attic, and I was impressed. I kept putting off reading this book because I didn't really know what it was about. I always knew I wanted to read it, but for some reason I put it off all the time. And picking it up, I was amazed. The writing style is really creative and immersive. It's all written from a we perspective. The story is following a group of Japanese women who come by boat to America to meet their husbands. It's all happening, I think, shortly after the First World War. And we see all the events that are happening afterward. It's basically a story of the feelings and experience of a generation of immigrants. And it isn't just the story of one. We always hear what we experience, but we hear different experiences, not one. And I love this. We hear how they arrive, how they are on the boat, how they meet their husbands, and we always get multiple perspectives, multiple ways of how this went and how the life turned out to be then. And the story goes on, or the stories and experiences continue till the Second World War, and how they are all put into the internment camps, and then it ends. And I really, really enjoyed it. Especially in the last chapter, perspective changes from the Japanese to the Americans, and that was also very interesting and very personal. At some points it could get tedious when you have different experiences repeated from different perspectives a lot, but it also made it so much harder and more real and emotionally working. Emotionally working is not a word. And emotionally gripping. It really touched you while reading it, and the writing was beautiful. I can only recommend this. It's a very fast read that really gets you, it gets to you. Of course, I also listened to quite a few audiobooks. The first one I listened to was The Art of War. And I really can only say I listened to it. It's about an hour long. And it's something that you hear referenced in a lot of books and films, and always by businessmen, that they're following the art of war, or manly men talking about the art of war. And I was curious, and now I've read it, and yeah, that's all I can say about it. The last 3 audiobooks I listened to were memoirs. I listened to Wildflower by Barrymore, talking about her life, and it was a fun audiobook to listen to. I noticed that she was focusing a lot on positive things, even though she talked about her childhood, her teenage years, and the struggles she had there, but she glossed over those very fast and concentrated on things she felt more positive about and felt more she wanted to talk about. It was not an overall I tell you everything. It was some stories of her life, about different parts of her life that I think she was proud of. And it's normally when you read a memoir, you don't feel it that much, but here it was very, very subjective. And you could feel that she was leaving out things, which is okay. It's her life. She doesn't have to tell everything. I thought it was fun. I also thought listening to the audiobook was fun because she did a wonderful job at reading the book. Tough Shit by Kevin Smith was interesting. I didn't really know that much about his life, but it was a lot of things about making movies and being in the film business and his ideas of what he had planned to do with filming and the films he got to make and his life's ideas a little bit. There's a lot about Harvey Weinstein, and this book, I think it was written in 2012, so way before the Harvey Weinstein abuse got public and discussed in media, so there's no mention of that. But Harvey Weinstein was a huge part in his career and an influence, so he gets mentioned a lot. That's something you should be aware of when you go into the book. Otherwise, I thought it was very interesting what he did outside of the movie business that I didn't know. He got into podcasts apparently back in 2012 and doing a lot of live shows, and that was interesting. There's a lot of swearing and foul language, but I guess if you listen to something by Kevin Smith, you expect that. So that shouldn't be a surprise. And the last audiobook was Neil Patrick Harris' Choose Your Own Autobiography. And I must say, I hesitated getting this on audio because I always thought this is something that you should have in physical form, that you can flip through and do the choose your adventure thing. But I noticed that I like the idea of choose your adventure books a lot more than actually reading them. Listening to the audiobook with him telling me everything was a pleasure. Basically, he chose the way that we went, so I got a direction and all the other ways that ended up in death a lot, but it was easier for me. I could just listen and follow through, and his stories and the way he narrates them, the way he tells his life, it's a pleasure. I enjoyed it to hear about his Doogie days and his theater days I didn't know anything about, and also his family and the life around that, and about his sexuality and how that is always perceived and everything. I loved it. I was really surprised. I didn't expect it to enjoy it as much as I did, so I can highly recommend the audiobook here as well. And that was my August. Let's talk about your August. How was your reading? Did you forget some of the books as well, even though you enjoyed them? Or did you really have a standout good or bad book? Let's talk about that in comments. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.